The most effective science fiction should lead us to ask questions, and one of the largest sources of self-rumination is none other than the cosmic mystery that cradles our existence. From ancient oral myths to cinematic masterpieces, the universe, its origin, and the infinite intricacies contained within have been imagined and attempted to be explained, even before the technology that launched Sputnik into the Earth's orbit was ever invented, or before we ever confirmed the existence of planets outside our solar system. Storytellers and philosophers had written about what lies beyond our reach. Our imagination fed scientific advancement, and scientific advancement conversely expanded our speculative musings. Whether fact-based or flirting with outlandish fantasy, science fiction evidently has the ability to transcend beyond momentary entertainment. And in today's video, we will be looking at how the space exploration genre in film is a continuing search for answers that examines the relationship between what we know, what we don't know, and the human perspective that ties it all together. To do so, we will look at 3 films that explore the concept of space travel: 2001: A Space Odyssey, Interstellar, and The Martian. 2001: A Space Odyssey is widely regarded as one of the best pieces of science fiction on film. Innovative and ahead of its time, it is a film that relies very little on dialogue. It is made in a way to evoke different feelings in the audience, mostly by what we see rather than by what is explained. The Martian is a very boots-on-the-ground and pragmatic approach to science fiction. We see the intricacies involved in getting a man that is stranded on Mars back home. It is a film often praised for its accurate scientific representation. Interstellar lies somewhere in between the other two. There is a visual quality and spectacle to it, counterbalanced by its hard sci-fi inclinations. It is the story of the search for habitable planets because the Earth will no longer be able to sustain life. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead.
In the face of overwhelming odds, I'm left with only one option. I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
Scientific accuracy in film is not a necessity, seeing as some of the most popular sci-fi movies are basically fantasy in space. But in these 3 films, it's a notable effort that they try to maintain and respect to some degree. Each production had scientific consultants with the goal to ground the movies in a certain reality. Neil deGrasse Tyson often quotes Mark Twain in reference to the portrayal of science in media. Get your facts first, and then you can distort them as much as you please. A concept based on hard science is introduced and then taken to the edge of its logical application. In the case of Interstellar, the concept that gravity can travel across dimensions is used as a way for the main character to communicate with his daughter. We're also shown how an immense gravitational pull affects a character's perception of time relative to the people back on Earth. Due to the ocean planet's proximity to the black hole and its massive gravity, the landing party experiences time differently than those that are back home. When they return to the Endurance, they learn that in the few hours they spent on the planet's surface, 23 years have passed for everyone else. It's something based on reality that we deal with on a small scale. GPS needs to correct its data before sending it back to our devices because of the difference in gravity on the planet's surface relative to the satellites in orbit. We see it played out on the big screen in a way that might be theoretically possible, but that we haven't had the chance to witness in real life. The Martian's approach is far more plausible. The screenwriter, Drew Goddard, really cared about staying true to the science, like the novel's author, Andy Weir, did. That's why the problem solving is the crux of the film. We get to see every step in Mark Watney's thinking and planning as he converses with the audience through his GoPro vlogs, touching on subjects ranging from botany to hexadecimals.
Look, I don't mean to sound arrogant or anything, but I am the greatest botanist on this planet, so...
We get to see an accurate representation of what it would take to survive on Mars. 2001: A Space Odyssey is very much about evolution. We get to observe the development of humanity from its early beginning, as the apes learn that dead animal bones can be used as tools and weapons, elevating them above the other creatures. The progression continues in the advancement of technology, not only in their capacity to visit the moon and further outwards into the solar system, but also the ability to create the seemingly infallible AI. The film's portrayal of technology was very much informed by what NASA had at the time, only slightly before the first manned moon landing. On top of concepts based on physics, there is something that all 3 movies share, an object that is a physical representation of scientific knowledge: the spaceship. Not only is it a tangible object that we can see on the screen, but it is a metaphor of our collective progress as the human race. When sailing across the sea of stars and planets, the only thing we can bring with us on our journey is our knowledge. The accumulation of thousands of years worth of evolution, history, and innovation represented by technology. The very ships that carry our protagonists are a symbol of what we know, what we hope is enough to get us to where we're going. The only defense in an inhospitable environment. For as much as we think we might know about space, there is so much more that we can't grasp. Our amassed knowledge of the entirety of the cosmos might very well amount to the contents of a glass of water spilling into the ocean. As we've mentioned in the past, showing something that no one knows is quite tricky to pull off. Showing too much gives us a sense of familiarity and eliminates any semblance of mystery, while not addressing the unknown might make understanding the message harder. The Martians' approach to the unknown is more practical and mathematical. Equations that need to be balanced. Every variable is an unknown until it is solved, and then used in another equation on its way to be resolved as well. For example, Mark Watney is stranded on Mars and can't contact Earth. He knows that he would have to wait 4 years for the next manned mission. The amount of food he has will last for about a year, so he has to grow 3 years worth of food to survive. In order to begin tackling the problem before him, he plants potatoes in the soil with the crew's feces as fertilizer. That solves the provenance of the nourishment, but he needs water. He knows that if he burns the hydrazine rocket fuel, he can get water. Unfortunately for him, it causes an explosion, so he has to correct his approach and try again. After tackling the food issue, he moves on to the communications issue, and so on. Interstellar deals with the unknown through scale, the juxtaposition of the tiny and the immense, the wormhole, the black hole, the effect of gravity on the crew's perception of time relative to Earth. All grand elements of which we know a little, but whose full effect cannot be entirely anticipated, as the characters find out. Having never ventured into a dimension higher than our own, Nolan shows us what the Tesseract's visual representation is for Cooper, the way he sees it. It's in a similar vein to how 2001: A Space Odyssey presents us with the entities that personify the unknown in space. Extraterrestrial intelligence. Aliens have always exemplified our fear of the unknown. They are the dragons at the edge of the world that explorers feared when heading out to sea, before circumnavigation was a known fact. We project onto them our misgivings, and often grant them a grotesque or monstrous appearance with claws, sharp teeth, slime. They are the boogeymen we create in relation to our limited human perspective. As much as we might relish the thought to discover life on another world, part of us fears what that life might look like and what it might mean for us as a species. We might end up like Dave, a specimen in an extraterrestrial zoo. Originally, Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke wanted to portray the extraterrestrials, but showing them in their complexity with the limited ability to have them appear humanoid would have been a failure. Carl Sagan advised them to only show the effects of the extraterrestrial beings, their influence in the world, through the monoliths and the human enclosure at the end. Furthermore, to assume that extraterrestrial life would look like us would be arrogant. How much of our planet's biodiversity actually resembles us? We cannot really predict what a species would look like, or how they would reason after adapting to conditions different than ours, living in a civilization far older than our own, and surpassing our technological adolescence to the point that they can manipulate space-time. Showing beings beyond our understanding is within the avenue of cosmic horror. Something godlike, superior, and unknowable cannot be contained within a frame and remain a mystery. As Stanley Kubrick is purported to have said, you can't really show the face of God.
We used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt.
Astronauts have described the change that occurs when they first look back on our planet, hanging in the void, beautiful yet fragile somehow, unperturbed by any of the chaos that occurs on the surface, an arresting self-awareness of how small we are in the universe. It's called the overview effect. This different perspective causes a cognitive change that affects astronauts for the rest of their lives. We appreciate the grandeur and vast scale of the universe even more when it's set in contrast to the finite human perspective. Space exploration is indeed the quest for answers, but we shouldn't overlook an important part of the equation. There can't be an answer if there is no one to ask the question. If these films were only interested in talking about theories and the laws of physics without having a human element at their core, they would be more akin to textbooks than art. It's harder to connect with an enumeration of cold hard facts than with a person coming face to face with the obstacles that those facts represent. It's a reason why Andy Weir injected the character of Mark Watney with so much humor, to make the long scientific enumerations more palatable and to keep us reading. Whether it's Dave's journey to get back into the ship, Mark's attempts at growing food on Martian soil, or the Endurance's crew's mission to find a hospitable planet, the protagonists are motivated by their primal instinct of self-preservation, to fulfill the most basic physiological of human needs of having food, water, and shelter. This is exemplified at the beginning of Space Odyssey, and bookended with Dave's fight for survival that pits him against the AI that, could be argued, wanted to rid the ship of all the humans and reach the monolith that had been kept secret from the crew. Hal was fighting for his own survival as well, but eons of evolution within Dave's cells helped the human beat out the computer, slowly and methodically lobotomizing Hal until his programming reverted to its base form and then was wiped out. In The Martian, it's the inextinguishable resilience of Mark Watney, shared by the meticulous efforts of all the characters back on Earth and in the Ares crew.
You just begin. You do the math. You solve one problem, then you solve the next one. And then the next. And if you solve enough problems, you get to come home.
In Interstellar, it's the conflict of prioritizing the human species over the human individual, and the difficult choices that it may cause. But a unique way to represent the human element that Chris Nolan and Hans Zimmer explored was through the music. I really wanted to use a church organ, and I also made the case very strongly for some feeling of religiosity to it, even though the film isn't religious. But that the organ, the architecture, cathedrals, and all the rest, they represent mankind's attempt to portray the mystical or the metaphysical, what's beyond us, beyond the realm of everyday. The booming score built around the sound of an organ, an instrument that needs air to blow out of its pipes in order to deliver its melody, is the surrogate for humanity in space, where there is no air. Each note is like a living breath, set against the backdrop of the infinity of space, reminding us of our insignificance in the grand scheme of things, but also of what one person can do to propel us close enough to touch the seemingly unreachable. Space will always evoke powerful emotions within us: fear, wonder, consternation, horror, anxiety, and almost religious awe. And film is the canvas on which we see those emotions take shape, where the question is closer to an answer. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video, and for your patience. We were on hiatus for the last month working on my brother's short film. It's a no-budget horror film about a little girl that's coming to terms with her father's disturbing transformation. You can find the link down in the description if you're interested. And our t-shirts are available again. You can follow the bonfire link to purchase one if you want to help support the channel. We really appreciate it. The orders will be compiled for a period of 2 weeks and then they're shipped out. Today's music was made by Eduardo Gonzalez. If you like his work, you can find his information down in the description. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and remember to hit that notification bell. Until next time.